Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's water cooler chat, where we talk about all things Livepeer, whether it's orchestrating, delegating, broadcasting, developing, or anything to do on the Livepeer network. We're here to ask questions and get answers. So we got a couple of topics ahead of us. I'm going to start off and kick us off with the Livepeer Innovators DAO topic. I like to get these ones out of the way because I think it's really easy to just do these updates regularly and for people to hear what's going on. So first of all, the new Livepeer Explorer is out, the demo on the Go Early testnet, and it was fun because I got to test out the new treasury function where we can actually submit a proposal, a request for treasury funds. And so the first attempt at doing it. It failed because I didn't have enough stake to meet quorum. I didn't reach the 33% because the faucet would only give me 10 LPT at a time. And who was it? Victor? He was the whale on the network. So the first one actually just got voted defeated. Luckily, Victor was nice enough to send me 1,200 LPT. So I was able to then resubmit and have quorum and do a forward vote. So yeah, it successfully went through on the testnet Explorer. And what happens then is once the vote gets approved, then there's like 2 more calls you have to do to release the funds to the contract. So the first one would have been it's called queuing, I guess. You queue the funds, and then the second is to execute the treasury to release the funds to wherever it belongs. So that went actually really smoothly. There was no hiccups there. A couple UI hiccups that were fixed as I was going through it. So that was really positive. We ended up fixing just a couple of small things that I noticed. And then from the Livepeer Innovators DAO side, I used ThirdWeb, their pre-compiled or kind of pre-made smart contracts for lots of generic things. So I used their split contract for distributing funds amongst a number of people based on percentages. So I used 3 addresses, did 25%, 25, and 50 just to test it out. And so so I deployed the contract. Once the treasury funds were sent to the smart contract, you just call upon that contract to distribute the funds that according to what was set out in the contract when you built it. And that went smoothly as well. So all the LPT was then released according to what was originally created in the contract. So yeah, just a proof of concept that it does work. In fact, the way we're going to plan to do our rounds and distribute the funds in a non-custodial way where the DAO doesn't even need to have a treasury, it worked quite well. So yeah, I'm just happy to report on that. Does anyone else have any questions on that process or want to make any comments on it?
I'm sorry.
When you submit, go ahead, Ben.
Just a quick question. You said the DAO doesn't actually have to have a treasury itself. I apologize if you explained how that works, but I just tuned back in.
Sure, because we go on like a round based, like the DAO itself does rounds that does releasing of funds. We're running the DAO and then based on the results of applicants and the results of us deciding who gets funding, we are just deploying a smart contract that redistributes the treasury funds automatically to the recipients that are deserving. So the DAO doesn't actually hold any of the funds that get sent out to the recipients of the round. We're just deploying a smart contract that automatically does that, right?
That's awesome.
Yes. So there's just like a lot of it just eliminates the security risk, just the risk of the DAO having to hold funds of any kind. So the way it works is We will vote on this as the DAO, but we'll redirect about 10%. I don't know. We have to come up with a percent, but a percentage of the round votes are going to get redirected to members of the DAO who have participated in, running and building and maintaining the DAO itself. So again, it's a way for DAO members to get rewarded for the effort they put into it, but again, without having any risk of the DAO having a treasury and or getting hacked or anything like this. So it's just a really simple way of non-custodial management of funds, right? And then what happens is the treasury itself doesn't have to trust the DAO is going to release the funds accurately to what the recipients say they're going to receive. It's just deploying it straight into a smart contract, which you can't change. And so when the voting happens on the on Delta, like on the treasury level on Livepeer, we can actually verify that the smart contract that it's applying for, the funds to get released to, does in fact correlate to what we say it's going to happen. So yeah, it just brings a lot of trust to the Livepeer treasury in itself to determine, to explain that, hey, these funds are going to the appropriate addresses, and there won't be any chance of theft, if you will. So, does that make sense?
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for setting all of that up.
How will you know that, like, either how many tokens will be approved from the treasury to release to each, retroactive public goods funding recipient, or that tokens actually will be released from the treasury to fund those recipients, according to these like rounds that you've run?
So hold on.
It's like a timing. It's like a timing question, right? So if you're saying, okay, we ran a round and we're going to distribute LPT to 10 different recipients, and we've encoded all of that in a smart contract, then the voting for the treasury to release its LPT into the lid DAO smart contract still needs to happen, right?
That's right. Yeah. So, I mean, we're going to run the round. We're going to, come up with our results on the percentage that each recipient is deserving of. We will create the smart contract for that to happen. And then we need to go. So we've done all the legwork, but now we need to go to the treasury and say, hey, this is what we've done. Let's put forward a vote to the Livepeer ecosystem to see whether the legwork that we've done is deserving of these funds, right? And let's come together on consensus that these recipients are just deserving of this. This is either the correct or incorrect amount we should be giving them. These kinds of things. And then from a protocol level, we can decide whether this is a good use of funds. Now, if it gets voted down, it's either we've done something wrong as a DAO, we've not done enough work to convince people that, hey, this is in fact a good use of funds, or people, for whatever reason, we can have that conversation. But yeah,
got it.
Does that make sense?
Cool. Yeah, it makes sense. Definitely according to like that mechanism that you're trying. So yeah, nothing to argue against there. I was just curious about sort of what happens if it gets turned down due to, I don't know, like people disagree that one of the recipients in your round should be rewarded or something, and then and you've done all this work to reward everyone else, but it gets voted down because of one random thing.
Sure.
I'm just comparing it to the alternative of, hey, we've run these rounds before, we want to access this much LPT to run the next round, release that, and then we can run the round, which I guess is just a different way of going about it. I don't need to argue for or against it. I was just trying to understand.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, okay, so maybe one recipient is not deserving of that, and over 50% of the token holders of LPT agree with that statement. Okay, great. The Innovators DAO can vote to remove that recipient and make a new smart contract and vote on it again, right? So,
cool.
There's nothing saying that it just gives more transparency and trust to, I think, the voting of the treasury, right? Because otherwise, like I said, the other way, like you mentioned, is where an X amount gets distributed to the Innovators DAO treasury, and then we manage our own treasury for handing out those funds. And that's another way of doing it. And I think some people do it that way, but I figured, just to avoid the complexity of having our own treasury, maybe it's worth just doing it in this setup, and providing more clarity and trust around the voting process. But that doesn't mean it can't change, right? This is just the idea I had for starting the first round, right? If we're doing many rounds, like if we're doing, if this becomes a regular thing where the treasury is annoyed by the amount of rounds we're doing, then maybe we just, do it in a different fashion. I don't know, but I figured this was just a good and easy start.
Oh, sounds good.
Yeah, does anyone else have any questions on that?
The one other quick question I had was, you mentioned some like UI challenges in creating the poll. Obviously, it's the first time that UI has been used and tested in the Explorer, and I don't think the UI has gotten quite as much love and care as actually like auditing the protocol code and stuff. So it sounds like you raised those issues, but yeah, don't hesitate to like file a bug on the Explorer or mention it for any issues you saw, so we can get those fixed up.
Yeah, no, I created a proposal and it just wasn't showing up. It was just indefinitely loading, or something like that. And then the page was missing when you clicked on it, and I guess Victor was like, "Oh, it was just a math error where it was like, oh, if the time equals now, it should be displaying, and if it just the bracket turned around the wrong way or something simple." So, but it was a really good and smooth experience. I did like it. So hopefully we'll kind of work out any more bugs or kinks that come up. And that being said, if anyone else wants to put forward a proposal, I can transfer some. So now I'm the whale on the testnet. So if you do want to put forward a proposal and test it out, just let me know and I'll send you some of my holdings so that you can vote and pass on any proposal. Okay. Yeah, so I mean that's that. Excited. We're just still working on the application process for submitting people to the round. So getting close to being done that. But no, it was just nice to know that the setup worked for how we're going to be running these rounds. Okay, cool. We got a couple more people that have joined us, so let's just quickly introduce the rest of the people that have arrived, and then we'll continue into the next topics. Papa Bear, you've joined us. You want to introduce yourself on a topic?
Yeah, I am Papa Bear. I run the Solar Farm Orchestrator, and I was curious to know how many people here have tried out the new, I guess, pre-release of the new Livepeer, and what your experience has been with it so far.
Yeah, but I believe that is the CUDA driver upgrade, right?
Yes.
Right. I think
Get
that was
to it, Papa Bear.
That was Mike's
What'd you say?
topic as well. So
I beat you to
okay.
it. I stole your topic.
Great minds think alike.
yeah,
That's right.
definitely we'll get into that right away here. So I do appreciate that topic because that's something that I've had trouble with. Thanks for joining us, Papa Bear. John, would you like to introduce yourself on a topic?
Hey, this is John with Lead Encoder. I've been operating since October 2021. I did have some feedback on the Treasury page, and also was wanting to talk about the CUDA updates. One topic I'd like to add is, we talked a few weeks ago about the difference in performance related to Arbitrum RPC calls that affecting the Git orchestrator request speed. I've got some information on that a little bit and wanted to see if anyone else has found anything.
Great. Yeah, the RPC. Yeah, that was a good topic. I know that the RPC call thing, the issue had been solved at least temporarily, but it's not in the official release yet. So.
Oh, okay. So there has been some changes.
Yeah. So
that's good.
If you want, you can pull the latest build, and it has that upgrade in it. And so now it disregards your RPC speed doesn't affect your Get orchestrator response.
Okay.
Big shout out to Brad for that upgrade, and Marco for pulling it into the project. So, cool. Okay, let's hop into a big topic, which is around this CUDA driver upgrade, the pre-release of Livepeer for the latest one. And yeah, I was very unsuccessful at getting it working on Windows. But Papa Bear, why don't you take away this topic? You want to tell us what we've seen and if you've had success or not? I know you've been working on it a little bit.
Well, the latest version that that was put out that Rafael pointed to this morning works I mean, it just installs no problem, but it doesn't actually use the new scaling method that the Linux and Docker version are using. So I think so it doesn't support that, but it does support. I believe that they now have switched to a slow transcoding preset, which that part is still the same. So it doesn't do the scaling with the new algorithm. But as far as Windows goes, I mean, it does work, and there's nothing special you need to do to get it working. So that's good for Windows people. But I had it installed on Docker, just like in a test environment. Hadn't really actually done much with it other than just want to make sure it worked for when it goes live. But this morning I put it into production, and I saw it's only been one test that's come through so far, but it was almost 30% slower in transcode speed. So I was just wondering if anyone else had played with it. And again, I'm a pretty small data set there. It was 20% slower on Windows from one test stream. So I was just kind of curious to hear other people's results with speed, and I haven't done any kind of a load testing on it yet.
Question about that: is the slowing done because of the quality training going to slow, or is it because of the scaling thing?
I think that they probably both play some role in it, but the going to slow would be the bulk of it.
Well, you said Windows doesn't have the scaling change, and you saw 30%, right? So, or 29%.
Windows was about 20%, and that doesn't have the scaling change, but it does have a different encoder preset of slow. And I don't know what it was before. I don't know if it was medium or fast.
So it's not apples to apples.
It's not apples to apples, but they're both slower from, again, very limited testing. So I was curious enough if anyone else had played around with it and what their results look like. I think Frank had it installed. I don't remember what he saw. If you're around, Frank, if you want to comment.
Yeah, I thought Frank had commented on speed. He noticed some speed differences, but I don't want to speak for him.
And I think it was posted that it was going to be approximately 20% slower. And what I guess I'm more curious about is, do we need to set our max sessions lower? And that's some testing that I can do later. It's a little tough to do in Docker, or at least if there's a way to do it. I'm not familiar with how to do it, but I can definitely try it on Windows.
Yeah, just for information, with Ubuntu, it's around 10%, I think, a difference. I'm running in production since 5 or 6 days now, and it's okay. It's run fine, but 10% slower. Yeah.
Okay, so that's what you're seeing on. And are you getting that from the test streams, just noticing the time difference from a test stream? So it's
I have a question in regards to this. Is the benchmark also set to slow? Are we able to use the benchmark tool to help determine these settings?
To quote Rafael, he thinks so, but I'm going to guess it probably is.
Have you run the benchmark to see if it's slower?
I have not run it yet because I haven't had the machine sitting idle yet to do it, but I will when the next time it's idle.
Well, like I said last week too, so hopefully folks don't forget is, the performance time in terms of round trip time is good to note, but I'd also encourage folks to run the NVIDIA GPU exporter to see, like, does the 20% round trip time equate to 20% more system usage of the GPU, or is it a different factor on the GPU? Like, slower is going to add more work, but what percentage? And I think that goes back to what you were saying, Papa Bear, about how many max sessions can you do now as opposed to before, right? And I think that's a good indicator. But I'm just curious if folks are also tracking the GPU resource usage over time, so they could look at real production data and compare this real production data when you actually put the software into production. And maybe it's just me, but that's the way I'm looking at it.
Yeah, I mean, most of us base our max sessions on, we ran the benchmark when we first started up, and based it off of that. So I'm just curious to see, running that same test, does it handle the same amount of streams as it did before, or and if not, I guess we adjust down. But I mean, probably a good idea just to look and see how it's affecting the encode and decode chips.
Yeah, I tried to get it to run, and I couldn't get all the libraries linked and running. One question I had is, it seemed like there was a conflict between NVIDIA driver version and CUDA version. So like when you install the NVIDIA drivers and run NVIDIA SMI, you get a CUDA version number in the top right corner. Does that need to match with the CUDA SDK version that we install, or does anyone have a clue?
That's a good question. I know Dr.
There is
Paul,
a minimum when you look at, if you go on to the CUDA documentation site, and I can probably post a link, but when you look at each of your operating system architectures, there's a minimum driver version requirement for CUDA SDK to run. So, and it's different
Okay.
from Windows to Linux. So what you got to do is just go look at that site, and there should be a compatibility matrix that allows you to say, okay, for this architecture, this is the driver version required for this CUDA SDK version. And I think you got to pay attention to what the Livepeer team was saying they wanted the version to be at. So I think they were like 11.7.1 or something like that. So when you're
Yeah,
looking at it, look to install 11.7.1 SDK and just marry that driver version with the requirement, and you should be good.
that makes sense. I was trying to go with CUDA 12. It's one of the latest and greatest.
And I think folks were doing the same. I think Brad, as he was messing around with it, installed CUDA 12, the latest version. And I don't think he had problems either, but he wasn't running Windows. So just take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah,
And
I
I don't
think
think he actually went to production with his change either. So I don't know if it actually works with real streams running in production.
there's a difference between the Docker setup as well as just regular Linux or Windows without Docker.
Yeah, I think as he indicated with Docker, is the Livepeer Docker image bundles in all the required libraries needed to run the CUDA SDK. So if your host doesn't have it set up, that the Docker part should just work. Now, I haven't tested that part because I always, even prior to this Livepeer upgrade, I had the CUDA SDK installed on my host. So I'm not sure if the host without the CUDA SDK running Docker with the Livepeer image with the CUDA stuff baked in, will it just work? I think they've tested that. Livepeer has tested that, and I think they're saying it works. So I would take their word on it unless I prove otherwise.
Yeah, it'll definitely be valuable. We could work on like an instruction guide for Windows and Linux and Docker without Docker, kind of draw out the dependencies and some of
Have
the
you
gotcha
seen the
things.
Have you seen the thread about the new Go Livepeer thread?
I did,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
I followed it very early on.
Oh,
I've
okay.
been busy. I was actually sick over the last week, but definitely going to revisit that this week and see if I can learn from where everyone else is at.
I would just encourage you to take another look at Docker. I know Docker sometimes seems like this enigma that folks can't, get their hands around, but it truly does simplify running the host environment and managing an orchestrator. So if you aren't looking at Docker and you're not running Docker, take a look at it, because this upgrade will require you to do more finagling of your server if you're still using binaries. But again, if that's the way you're comfortable and that's the way you like running, then run it that way. Just know you have new host requirements, but Docker can eliminate a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, it's a very good point. I'm definitely considering it.
So
Yeah, once I get it running, I'll run some tests with the encoders as well, the utilization.
Don't forget, we've published multiple how to run Livepeer on Docker tutorials and videos, and there's sites. So there's a plethora of resource to do it. So it's not painful anymore, but it definitely is scripted.
cool. Do we have any more comments around the CUDA upgrade, or like the way I see it, like pools like Video Miner, Titan Node Pool, and like Live Pool, this might affect them the most, just because we have remote teas and people with different machines. I'm just wondering about the performance and kind of adoption of that. I think
Yeah, again, I think, from a video miner perspective, we want to start pushing Docker. If we can get the community on board with Docker, like I said, that eliminates those concerns we have. But, most people aren't going to just throw Docker on their gaming rig, you know what I mean? Like, or whatever they're using for their hardware. So it might be some resistance there, but it would simplify it if you can educate your user base to run Docker. But again, if not, then you're right. You better get your docs updated.
Definitely. The other question I had around this was, I think I brought it up last week, but like, the new upgrade is running on slow, but what's to say we don't stay with 6.0 and we don't take this upgrade and we just do it faster? And how will broadcasters even know, right?
Yeah, I was wondering that same point. Like, you got a new release that's taxing the server a little harder. You got performance coming into the algorithm changes upcoming with the, soon in Livepeer. So if you stay at 6, your performance is better than somebody who's not who was at the latest release. And is that really a good thing? And how do you prevent that? I mean, I guess you would have to say, at some point in time, the older versions of Livepeer will no longer be supported and you need to move over. But I don't know how that decision is made on Livepeer side.
Well, now that I think about it, couldn't you just go in there and compile a version that's not on slow but on like fast, and then you'd be the other way around,
Yeah, you could go right now, fork the current release, and where he made change to be slow, change it to super fast, and you're going to be sending crap quality, and but you'll get better scores. I'm not sure what guarantees are in place to prevent a broadcaster from accepting that.
Oh, that's interesting. It brings up the verification component between broadcaster and orchestrator. I guess that we do have verification in place, but does it validate to the level of quality?
I don't think that's what the design of it was. I think it's more to tell, is it the same content more than the quality of the content, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm all for the
tampering.
power of the fork. Like if there's a faster implementation that can be built and compiled, then that one will probably win in the market. And I think that should become the default, and it probably should be, could be contributed back to the main branch or whatnot. So
Well, I think he was saying though the performance benefits wouldn't be like substantive. They would basically be like gaming the system, where everyone else following the normal binary would have a slow, higher transcoding quality, but a slower performance score. And if somebody goes in and recompiles it with fast, they're going to get a better score, but the quality goes down, right? The product is worse. So I think that's the part where, you know, John and I are just debating on it. Not necessarily that performance is good. We definitely want more performance, but not at the cost of making an inferior video product.
Yeah, I mean, the reason
see,
that it's
yeah.
slower now is to go for the better quality. So I would think that that would not be good for the network if everyone starts forking it and playing around with stuff like that, and there's no checks on the or at the broadcaster side or somewhere to.
Well,
make sure
that's
that it's
where
going
we
right.
were saying from a, you know, from a capabilities perspective, the broadcaster should send a request to the orchestrator and say, what are your capabilities, and provide those capabilities. And if slow transcoding, fast pass transcoding is part of the options in those capabilities, then the broadcaster can elect not to use that orchestrator. And I'm not sure if that part's there.
Yeah, it would be
Right.
nice if broadcasters
Agreed.
could select which if they want high quality, low quality, and pay and know that they're getting what they pay for.
Yeah, that leads me a little further out on the roadmap to like this job type abstraction and just being able to advertise different services or different sort of sub capabilities within a standard service like GPU transcoding, so that you know, broadcasters can select the nodes that match their preferred service, and B, they can verify that that work was actually done correctly according to that capability. So
Yeah, and
some
rigs
work to do.
rigs can be built on the orchestrator and transcoder side to optimize for those use cases, right? So if we know there's a, you know, whatever the job type you described is, you can set up a rig that is tailored for that use case. And then you could probably spin up multiple configurations to say, okay, I want, you know, high quality, I'm going to charge this because I'm running it on, you know, more expensive hardware, but for VOD jobs with lower quality, I got this infrastructure over here running at a lower cost, but I can, you know, charge less, you know, for transcoding if I knew that there were, you know, a variety of job types coming in. So I think it definitely, the roadmap looks good if you start to add those features in.
Isn't there also the idea of social consensus for slashing, where we could, you know, put together a case, like not saying that this is just not saying we're gonna do this, but basically this idea that, well, if you did game the system, the social consensus is we're all on slow and we're trying to deliver a high quality, you know, product for the end user. Someone goes and changes it to ultra fast and are sending back, you know, blurry pictures and they're not great. That would also might show up, you know, like could we not, you know, put together a case why this person did in fact, you know, alter the binary to say, hey, listen, like they're doing what's out of social consensus, and so we could, as a community, put forward a post to slash that orchestrator, right? So there could be like this social consensus around it, and we can keep each other in check by, you know, sending each other streams, making sure that what you get back is in fact, you know, what we want as a network, right? That might be getting too deep in the weeds, but yeah.
Well, I
I
mean,
think
again,
that's
I think
the I was gonna
go
say, I
ahead,
think
Doc.
that's like a candidate full aspect of the fast and full verification proposal, right? So like what's the full verification with slashing enabled after the fact that can be slow? It could be socially derived, right? There could be a, you know, a panel of signers who are judges that review the details of a case, right? And for some job types, that might be the best you can do. And for other job types, you know, there might be an on-chain smart contract that can just look at the data and make the decision on the spot, right?
I look
So
at tools like Brad's testing tool, right? Third parties can spin up any infrastructure that they want and sample and audit the protocol. And you know, if you have a really dialed in approach to sampling and verifying the data, that might be a service in which enterprise would leverage in conjunction with using Livepeer.
Totally.
Yeah, that is deep, baby. I feel like
Yeah, baby.
Mike Zoop, he's feeling sick, but I got him perked up. I got him back
Yeah,
in the game.
I'm fired up right now, man. Let's keep it going.
Yeah, man.
I do feel like the idea of job types keeps coming up in different areas of product, and it would be really great to just build out an example of one alternative job type like VOD. You know, we already have work coming in for, and set up a pricing model for it. That would be really useful. That could be a template for building out other job types. I think that would be a
Yeah,
high value thing.
to expanding on that, I think it would be great in the future if we work towards something where it's like we have, it's like a, I don't know how it would work, but a compute unit, kind of like Alchemy, if you're using their RPC services. It's not just the request, it's how complicated is that request that you're making, and how much compute power is it taking, and you bill for that. So if someone wants a super high quality and it's going to go slow and take up your whole machine to do one stream, that's fine. You just got to pay for it. And you want something that's cheap, you can, just take a smaller percentage of the computer that you're, basically contracting with. And that would, I think, open the door to allowing users to select the quality they want or different types of jobs, and just give more options, and get better pricing for the customer and fairer pricing for the transcoders.
Yeah, definitely. I know, like, if you go to Amazon and stuff, it gets quite in depth over the control that you get, right? So, yeah, I agree that. Although I'm not a developer, so I don't know how pressing these items are for developers. Like, I know for existing Web 2 companies, this is probably fancy and fancy encoding techniques and highly customizable video settings are going to be probably quite sought after because they've already got like a base of users, whereas maybe like the startup world cares a little less about the settings. They're just trying to get a product market fit first, and so it kind of depends on like who Livepeer is trying to appeal to, right?
It's all about having those dials in place so that the customer can turn the dial to what they want most important. If it's performance or cost, quality, if you're making a movie and you want to save this stuff for high quality replay, that's very different than, some guy falling asleep at his computer playing World of Warcraft. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd say that 99% of World of Warcraft streamers could have it on like ultra fast transcoding.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, right? Like, and they don't care, right? It's probably not their concern. So they have a different set of metrics and dials that they're going to want to tweak and adjust.
Except for those 0.1% where they have like 10,000 viewers, you might want to dial it up just for them.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, yeah, that's a lot to unpack there. So I do like those topics. I do want to move on to another topic, which is around Delta, which is Doug's topic. And so, Doug, do you want to give us a quick update on where we are with the voting and kind of the next steps, and then we'll open up to the floor for questions.
Sure. I think the group here largely is pretty familiar with what Delta is and probably heard some of the latest updates on these calls and the community call on Thursday. So I won't go too deep, but the audit that we ran with Codarena, the audit contest is complete. The prizes have been awarded. There's a GitHub repo where you can see the findings and the fixes and the remediations. Most of the findings were minor. There was one sort of attack that had to do with sort of stealing voting weight from another delegator, which was a little more substantial, which was also fixed. So all those details are viewable on Codarena. they're going to publish a formal report in like a week or two, which will also be linked from Codarena. But because all the actual findings and fixes are published, we don't really need to wait for that write up in order to move ahead with the vote. So the Livepeer improvement proposals actually are, I think a pull request has been accepted to move them to the proposed stage. It hasn't been merged in yet, but as soon as those are in the proposed stage, then anyone can go on the Explorer and open up the vote, which we kind of communicated on or around October 3rd. So that's tomorrow morning. And so voting will open. There will be 2 different proposals to vote on. The first one is for the creation of this on-chain treasury. And then the second proposal is how does that treasury get populated? And that's where it proposes the 10% of inflationary rewards will be routed into the treasury. So they'll be voted on separately. I can talk about, if you want, what happens if one passes and the other doesn't pass. But I think that's the high level summary of where we're at. Voting will be open for 10. It's supposed to be 10 rounds, though it turns out it's the protocol had hard coded the old round length, so it's a little shorter. I think it's more like 8.5 days or so. The voting will be open from tomorrow through the next 8.5 days. Orchestrators, super important. They carry the voting weight of all their delegated stake by default. So it's one of the sort of expected responsibility of an orchestrator to pay attention to governance proposals and vote. They'll see it right in the Explorer. They can use the node CLI if they'd like to vote and sign transaction directly from their node instead of through a web wallet, which makes sense. And yeah, we'll watch the results roll in over the next week and a half or so. I'll pause there.
Yeah, first of all, like I'm pretty excited for it. I'm excited that we're doing another proposal on chain. It's been a while since we've done one. I think the last one was like Arbitrum, or the round length change or whatever. So excited for the proposal of
Like
it.
a year ago.
Yeah, definitely. And just a reminder to the orchestrators also, just to DM other orchestrators or kind of notify other orchestrators, as well as like your social followings. Like make sure you just publicize that this is happening, and maybe just bring awareness to it. Whether a delegator would want to go against what their orchestrator says, but in general, I think it would be a good idea just to have people aware of this upgrade, and so that they can better understand the Livepeer ecosystem and the direction it's heading. So,
yeah, I like that. That's a good reminder. It's a good opportunity to like show your delegators that you care, you're paying attention, you voted, but also let them know they still have the choice if they want to show up and take action and engage themselves. They'll learn that something is happening here in Livepeer that they can take part in this governance action. So good reminder. I think we sort of shared some participation goals that might be interesting for people to remember. I think it would be great if over 50% of the active orchestrators voted, and I think it would be awesome if greater than 40% of the active stake was participating in the vote. Quorum is 33%, so the vote won't even count if we don't get past 33%. Typically, we haven't had a problem with that, but good to shoot a little higher and have people pay attention to governance, especially because now that this treasury is available, people will have a lot more governance actions they can take in terms of voting on and approving treasury proposals as well.
other than the Livepeer Innovators DAO, has there been other interested parties in putting forward treasury requests for funds that anyone's heard of?
I don't know if I'd call this like an entity or a company or anything yet, but I know people are interested in a proposal that would be used to create bridging liquidity between L1 and L2. So whether that's protocols like Hot Protocol or these bridging solutions, they require Livepeer token and ETH on both sides of the bridge, and there hasn't really been a natural entity that's incentivized to provide that instead of just staking. And so Delta creates the perfect opportunity because someone can make that proposal with the explicit purpose of the tokens being used for that, which should serve as a benefit to the community.
Very cool. Yeah, I like that idea that there's lots of different ideas around how these tokens can get distributed and to positively affect the ecosystem. And I think liquidity is a big one too. Mainly because the delegation part of the protocol, where a lot of our stake gets trapped in the actual protocol itself, which means it has a less opportunity maybe to be provided in liquidity. So yeah, but either way, I think that's really cool. Cool. Any other questions or comments around Delta? Right on. Well, I just
get ready to vote.
Yeah, get ready to vote. Yeah, I mean, thank you, Doug, for doing this and getting it all ready and putting in the efforts. I know that I, for one, am excited for it. So I'm excited to see the growth that can come behind it. So, and it's fun telling people that want to build on Livepeer, like, hey, you can build something, and hey, you can get rewarded for it. So just keep this in mind. Here's like the LID website where you can, apply for funding based on what you build. And people are pretty excited about that. I've had some good comments around, because people want to build, right? But there's not always a great incentive to, or it's quite daunting to do it if you don't have, finding product market fit is already hard enough. So it's nice to know that you could start building and maybe you'll actually get rewarded for building something interesting that can provide a base for someone else to build something, right? So it's good. Cool. Okay, well, we'll move on to a couple other topics. So the first one being, the RPC calls for slowing down the get orc response, and also feedback on the treasury page. So John, do you want to bring us through your topics and explain to us?
Yeah, I'll start with the treasury page because it's a pretty simple one. And maybe I just need to submit an issue or suggestion. One thought I had was if there is like a template to a treasury proposal, the first thing that came to mind was like a due date or something on the form, but kind of like a pull request has a template to it. I think probably could fit something like that in there. You don't want it to be too rigid, but I think there might be some basic data points we want to collect from proposals. If anyone has any feedback or thoughts on that, I'm sure, like we said, there hasn't been a lot of development on the UI yet.
Would that template be something that's like set as a placeholder in the area where you do the proposal, or is it was an external link to like guidelines and rules on how to do it?
I was thinking something that fills into the text box, like a template in the box there.
Kind of like how GitHub does it?
Yeah. I think our old the old grants proposal had a similar feel to it. But it could also be just actual text fields if it's something that we want to require field information on, or we need some validation on data. But nothing too stringent, but something to think about as far as what we might want to have as optional required fields and other info. It's not a bad idea, I think, to add another link there. The other thing I wanted to bring up, we were talking about RPC speed and performance, and it's great that Brad had fixed that. I haven't had a chance to do a lot of testing with it. I ran it a little bit and didn't see any issues, so it looks promising. But I hadn't noticed particular performance improvement from using it. So for the past few weeks, I've been focused on setting up my own Arbitrum nodes using this new Rock 5B platform. They've like 16 gigabyte on like single board computers. It's a very performant ARM platform, and I just wanted to share the progress of that, because I've noticed that they're very very performant over other architectures that I've used, and was recently able to set up HA proxy as a great solution to creating some high availability within the Arbitrum nodes. So it might be something to think about. I know we don't spend a lot of time, we try not to spend too much time on ARB nodes, but it's been very successful. And if anyone else is running ARB nodes, consider that as a solution. It's a really cheap way to go, cheaper than building bigger hardware, and they're easy to deploy. And then with something like HA proxy, you can get high availability. So maybe I could write up a guide on that soon, and I've got some configs I could share for health checks and things like that.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Yeah, if you could. Like I said, I don't know. I think most people got their RPC kind of set up, done, but at the same time, like, I think
It's never ending, man.
the public ARB node, they do rate limiting now, or I had to switch to a different provider, and then they started rate limiting their public one, and so now you have to get their API key, and it's free, and I'm using quotes in the air. It's free, but like they're clearly going to a paywall system. So, it's not a cheap, it's not an endless free service. It's always going to be something, right? So whether setting up your own infra or using something like Mike's that you can subscribe for a low fee, or something like that. I think it's, or if anyone's used Pocket, I've used Pocket Network, but it ended up being quite expensive, and so for the benefit of messing around with their system, I didn't decide to go with them.
Yeah, I think there's some good concepts around decentralization that running your own ARB node provides. I've seen it criticized before. That's the centralized component of decentralized apps, but yeah, we've been striving to get to that point, and glad to report some success with that. Hopefully, I can share it with the community. And there was actually a diagram on Hyperledger's documentation about. They actually provided some sample HA proxy configs as well for layer 1 applications, where you have your DApp going to a load balancer for high availability. So I think it's important. And in my case, we're just running it as a load balancer locally on the orchestrator. It doesn't take up a lot of resources, but it removes even an additional point of failure.
Definitely.
Well, that's all I had. A bit of a monologue, but thanks for hearing me out. And it was great success.
No, that's good. Like I said,
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it.
the RPC issue for the slow get orc requests was fixed by Brad. So that, I think, in general is just good for the network. And then, hooking up to your own RPC nodes is good. So if you haven't done so already, make sure you take the build with Brad's upgrade. It's not in the 6. Is it going into the new release that's coming out? Do we know, Brad?
I haven't submitted it yet.
I
It's
thought
on the
Marco
list.
did. I thought Marco put it in.
There's a PR, but it's not. There's some things that need to be fixed on it, and like I didn't update any tests when I did the update. There's still a little bit of legwork to do. It's on a list somewhere. Priority somewhere in the middle of the pack. Everything's gonna die.
Brad's list is longer than everything.
Well, if they don't officially merge that in, Brad, you're gonna have to make us something that we can use, or Marco will, or someone with the new release, so we don't lose out on that.
I don't. Anybody know what the timing of the new release is? Is it like, if it's going to be this week, it's going to be a hard no?
Yeah, no, I think it is supposed to be. I think they were shooting for last week, so I'm thinking it's coming anytime.
Yeah, well, it's not too bad to just pull that commit onto a new branch or an updated branch. If it's just one commit, it's not too hard.
Well, hopefully someone does it because it's beyond my skill set. So we'll see what happens. I had a quick question for John. Sorry. What's the rough cost of the hardware that you're talking about that runs these ARP nodes?
Yeah, the Rock 5B is about, I think it's $215, and they've been selling out, but I think you can still get them from some other vendors. Ameridroid.com is a one I had gotten mine through. You definitely need the 16 gigabyte RAM version.
And then you add an NVMe drive to it.
Yeah, there's four PCI lane NVMe slot right there at the bottom. Just a regular NVMe, and you can fit a 4 terabyte. That's what I did on mine just to give room. And then when you're looking for a case, there's like a metal case you can get. Looks like a Hive. I found on Amazon or something. There's a lot of different cases out there, but the one they sell at most sites, the green one, I don't think it works well. The trick was finding a NVMe heatsink that would fit. So I actually I think it went for 0.9 millimeter, and it fit just perfect. It was as small as I could get. Probably would have been fine with the thermal pad, but just wanted to make sure that it had enough cooling. But yeah, all in all, I mean, you figure in the cost of 4 terabyte drive, that's 200 plus the 215 or so for the device, and then a few other parts. You're in for at least $400 or $500 a box.
Just trying to figure out how I can cut out that Zoop bill every month. All right, that gives me I was curious to know what it was.
No, you're not going to cut out Zoop's bill. What you're going to do is you're going to buy one of these, deploy it, and run as part of my fleet of services so that everyone will be more decentralized. And that's what we'll do.
That's a good idea. Yeah, I mean, for us, it was about owning our own stuff. We've been trying to build our own infrastructure as much as we can. We don't rent servers. It's kind of a ideology with our group here, but Mike's nodes are very fast and really the best option to go if you don't have your own, I think.
No, I've been happy with Mike's. I'm just kind of messing with him because I know he's listening in.
Yeah, but I'm with you, John. I'm with you in the same mindset. I mean, I'm practical because I'm trying to run a business, but at the same time, it's going to be a lot easier to scale up with many nodes that are inexpensive that can be deployed across multiple regions. So, and being able to, like if Papa Bear spun one up and Marco spins one up, you spin one up, and we're all just, it's all just request responses with these ARB nodes, right? And even ETH nodes and Polygon nodes are all the same. So like, if you have a small footprint that can put these devices in people's hands and allow them to just hook up to some sort of registry that says, oh, okay, I'm going to send my request to you and you can get paid for them.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool idea.
How do you keep that reliable, though?
Well, that HA proxy, that's working out well for you?
Yeah, it's been pretty good. I mean, this is a tall order, and to some degree, we're building our own little pocket network if we go down that road. Probably not the biggest priority, but the HA proxy config that I have, it checks the Arbitrum sync status with an API call, as well as checks port connectivity. And it does it like every 2 seconds. So if it misses a few health checks, it'll take it out of service and use the other one. And then HA proxy also has some geographic support, geographic routing support and stuff. But in my case, the idea was to have a client-side load balancer on the orchestrator so that the orchestrator could make use of multiple RPC endpoints. I'd even considered maybe making a change to Livepeer. I think it would be nice if you could have multiple RPC endpoints and that just be part of the code.
But if you're dealing with RPC nodes that are running out of people's homes, I mean, it brings a serious reliability issue, especially when someone's running an application that, you need the nonces to be in sync. And if you have like multiple nodes and you're load balancing between them, or someone's node goes down and then you switch to a different RPC endpoint somewhere else, that could cause serious issues on like applications doing significant amount of transactions.
Yeah, I think you're right in that regard. The transaction rights would definitely have to be to a, dedicated set of application like nodes, like because you're doing the transactions, but I think the lion's share of the volume is reading the blocks, right? You're gonna find the workload. There's definitely quite a bit of transaction volume going on, but I think the read side on the blocks are gonna be probably the most heavily hit. And we've seen that so far, at least with a lot of the Livepeer stuff. But again, it'd be interesting to see what that mix of work looks like on different apps, if it's all transactions, because if that's the case, then there's definitely some things you might have to reconsider.
Yeah, it's a rabbit hole for sure. It's been a thing ever since we moved to Arbitrum. But it definitely seems, having a fast RPC node, at least for now, is helpful to performance. And who knows how it affects broadcasters too. I've been thinking about, be kind of cool as an orchestrator if you could offer an RPC endpoint for potential broadcasters as a perk. There's ideas around that too. But yeah, it's a tall order to build and run these nodes. So. And it's good to have documentation around it. But these Rock 5B devices are great for all kinds of things. They have some graphics on board. So I know Chris has done some transcoding with them before. I haven't really tested out the performance. I even thought about trying to hook a GPU to one of these things, which actually brings in the whole NetInt conversation a lot, because those 4 PCI lanes would fit really well with one of those Quadra T1 units or something, but that's a whole nother discussion. But the ARM architecture is very fast. You have a low latency between the IO lanes and the CPU. Yeah, it's definitely something to check out. A nice little dev box too. I mean, if you're looking for a server to test with, it's a non-intrusive thing to set on the shelf.
They should be paying you for this.
He's like the salesman, the tech sales, man. It's
Yeah.
free tech sales.
Disclaimer: I have no conflict of interest with Rock 5B or Rock Chip.
Look, he's just like the rest of us. When you find something that's reliable and works, you just want to share it, because rare do you find certain things that just work as is.
Yeah, it's true. Marco was also telling us about what was it, Orange Pi, which is like a beefier version of a Raspberry Pi. It sounds pretty similar to this as well.
Yeah, I don't know, John, if you heard of Orange Pi prior to this work, but I'd never heard of that. So I was kind of
No.
surprised, but it's in the same space, exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, I hadn't either. It's a really interesting area because it's amazing how advanced technology has gotten to be. I mean, previous attempts to build ARB nodes were these big, huge 50-pound clunkers, and now I have something the size of my cell phone that does everything. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's sick.
And you can build. Some people have built like 1U racks that have these in a cluster, and who knows what you could do with these. I mean, if you really could hook those to NetInt transcoders, you could have maybe it does 20 streams, but it does them in every codec, super low latency with high availability. I mean, there's a lot of things you could do with that. But obviously, we're focused more on the demand. I mean, we do want to look at how do we bring more streams to the network. At some point, we can build a lot of supply.
Yeah, the supply side is pretty well taken care of now. Just getting the demand there, and then once the demand's there, and you start to, optimize for performance and cost, you can shave off some more expense from there once you really focus on it. But without the demand, it doesn't make sense to put that effort forward.
Has anyone tried the Livepeer in a box system since Labor Day or so? When I last looked at it. I think that's a really great opportunity to bring broadcasters on board, but there were some issues I ran into with getting the UI to go.
Yeah, I tried it not recently, so I may need to take a look at it again.
Yeah. Got the Mist server UI to run, but the Livepeer Studio part didn't boot up. But I think that Eli had fixed that So I'm looking to try that out soon.
I'd love if there was like a demo where I could hop in and do Livepeer in a box.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically a Docker image, and now you have a broadcast studio in your pocket.
Well,
there.
Eli held a working API working group where he demoed running it, so it's not like it doesn't work. I just think it's still a bit got some sharp edges.
Right. Well, let's smooth out those edges, baby. We'll put it on Brad's list.
Time and pressure.
Cool. All right. Well, we've gone through all of our topics. We've talked about the Livepeer Innovators DAO, the Delta voting proposal that is going to be starting tomorrow, the new dashboard and the treasury on the Explorer, RPC calls and slowing down get orc requests, and as well as the almighty CUDA driver upgrade in the newest Livepeer release. So, any other topics we want to cover before we sign off?
I'll bring up one more quick one, or well, I don't know if it's quick or.
We got time, so just go for it.
The anyone looked at the new selection algorithm pull request, and if so, can anyone break it down? And for someone that's not as someone like me that's not that smart, can't really understand exactly how it works. I can post it if you guys aren't.
It uses stake and price. Any more technical than that is a little difficult. But basically, my understanding is you get a boost if you're able to charge lower price. But how it actually operates is very dependent on what percentage of weight is applied to stake and what percentage of weight is applied to price. And otherwise, there's a minimum performance thing. So it's like a filtering on performance.
So it takes the performance, and I don't know exactly how that's calculated from the Livepeer tests as a minimum.
It's round trip time divided by segment duration times success rate. That one's actually pretty simple. So you get dinged if you don't return all the time.
And that's regional, I see here.
Yeah.
And then so it kind of mixes everything. All happens is like it's not like it rotates between different things. Like sometimes it's going to be a price weighted, sometimes it's going to be a stake weighted selection.
No, it applies to stake weight and the price weight. It applies them both every time. It's not like the random where it tries to apply the random first, or if it hits the random, it would exit the selection algorithm. It calculates the probabilities based on the price and stake weights every single selection.
Okay, that part I didn't pick up on, that it's all just kind of one big, basically like formula that kind of goes in, and then one orchestrator gets selected out of that. I thought it kind of rotated through, and like sometimes it's going to use this one, sometimes it's going to use that one. All right, then I guess it really comes down to then how much weighting goes to each of the different criteria.
Yep.
Well, that actually explained it pretty clearly. Thank you.
With that being said, I'm just looking on your dashboard, Brad, and I noticed this orchestrators. I see no orchestrator swaps. Is that still
oh yeah, that's a good question.
Live?
I'm sure. That too. Yeah, what's up with that?
Something
Brad?
affect the orchestrator swapped thing?
I don't think so.
Because I don't know. Nobody's swapped, but before they were swapping.
There's only like 200 streams though too. So
okay.
Yeah, but by now someone would have been swapped. That 8905 is swapping.
Yeah, but the 8905 was actually returning somewhat faster than normal last time I looked at it. But I haven't really tried to dig in yet because I've been working out the kinks. So I had to do some of the back end rewrite for this, and also some of the broadcaster introspection stuff. And then, so small tangent, I got a lot closer on being able to submit this broadcaster introspection stuff because I've broken it all up now. But back to this, there was some little bit of rewrite on the parsing because the data coming out is different. We're using probabilities versus stake or random now. Still working out some kinks. It might get reset a couple times. I don't know why there's no swaps. I did notice that too. It could just be I don't have something wired up all the way right yet, but I'll give it a look in the next couple days.
This might be a dumb question, but since this seems to be really focused on the selection, how many times people are getting selected, and not so much about performance right now, do you even really need to send a stream out at this point? Can you just just run the selection? I guess that's what the playground does.
Yeah.
Just thinking for
So
you,
get to send,
less
send
bandwidth
one,
and less.
I guess you
no
can
money
send
to pay
one.
out.
You can send one segment, but I send 10 just to provide some data to people. You know, because we know that first segment's not reality once you get past that first segment.
Yeah, I guess I'm getting also thrown off by the fact that I'm not seeing any swaps. So I'm like, why not just simulate this and just say, all right, you were selected, but you know, that's it. I was just curious to know who was going to be get picked, and move along. Don't note it.
Yeah.
And, but again, that's I guess what you could do.
Which you can see. So I only have it on USA East right now, the new selection algorithm. I'm going to roll it out to the rest of them in the next couple of days. But like I said, working out some of the kinks. You can see there's a selection probability bar on it now. It's hidden by default, but you can enable it and then turn off the algorithm selection bar, and you can see the boost you get when you put a low price on the. I have a 50% stake weight, 50% price weight right now. You can see the boost you get. So like Chase has a average probability of like just under 6%. And like Buyers and the AFA node, the biggest ones are running at like 11% probability. So it's quite a boost.
But what is Chase's price?
Set to
Zero.
zero for
All those
zero.
For Brad's
all those ones
orchestrator.
that have a
all
lot
the
of selections are all zero.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
So
It skews the
basically,
data.
if you're
That's
willing,
why I'm doing
if you're
longer.
willing to set
Okay.
your price per pixel to zero, you have like you're up there with varies.
I see how this works.
That is the ultimate non-sustainable way of doing it.
Okay, now I'm
You'll
seeing.
never get a ticket.
Now I'm
just pay
noticing
the
the
bandwidth
pattern.
costs.
Okay, now I see. Yeah, all the orcs that have price set to zero.
I'm glad that price is now
Okay.
incorporated into the selection a bit more, though, because before it was a little arbitrary, just like everyone huddling around 900 or 1200 weight per pixel. So now you can actually set it. You can like do your math and say, hey, you know what? My system can handle 600 weight per pixel, and like that is nicely profitable for me. And you know that you'll at least get a slightly more work because you're slightly cheaper, right? So it's like, yeah. So it just allows you, like, whereas before you could set it lower and you just don't get any more work and you're just getting screwed, right? So then if any other broadcaster comes to the network, they're like, wait, we have to go to 900 or else you'll never get any orcs because they're all set to what Livepeer Inc. has set it to, right? So it does, I think, much broaden up the pricing a little better, because now there's an actual benefit to pricing it according to what you want to price it as an orchestrator, not arbitrarily against what the largest broadcaster is willing to pay. So I think that there's a benefit to that.
Yeah, I agree. It's just a step towards the more open market rather than the market that is like artificially determined. You know, it's exactly what you're saying, just in different words. Got to work on your costs, got to be efficient, got to stay on top of things.
I just don't understand how there's no orchestrator swapped. This just seems just blowing my mind right now. But nonetheless, very cool. I'm glad that you. This is like a nice visualization of the new selection algo. Like, I really do appreciate you putting this together.
Yep, just trying to keep us all in the loop, all informed.
Do you know when, or do you know if this has been deployed yet to Livepeer Inc.?
I don't think it's been deployed yet. The only reason I say that is because I have a couple of my O's at lower prices and I haven't seen a lick of change.
Right.
So I don't think it's been deployed.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough.
Not been deployed. I heard that earlier. It's not been deployed.
Very cool. All right. Any other topics we want to go through? One last topic I would like to bring up. There is a person by the name of something. Okay, I can't even remember now. I have to look it up. But he built a live streaming app on top of Livepeer for the DSO social network, the social graph called DSO, and it's called Waves, I think. It's called anyway. I said, hey, that's great and all, but can you build it for Lens? Because I'm on Lens, and I would love to stream there. And he's just cloned it over, and now he's going to do like a Lens version of his live streaming app. So hopefully, once that's up and going, then we could maybe support him. And I know I will be by streaming on his platform, but yeah, if we can provide some feedback and maybe motivate him to finish it, because I know it's easy to say you'll do something and then
Is that G2? Is that G2?
No, it was
No.
let's see.
That's all right. It was the only thing that popped in my head. So
it's
I know he was doing some stuff.
Samurai. I'm gonna think him Samurai. There he is the one building the Lens live streaming app with a up arrow. Point up. How do I point up? Point. There. There we go. I put it in the link. If let's see, when is he gonna? Anyway, if we can just kind of motivate him to keep going with that integration, I would just absolutely love that app. He already has the DSO one done, so if anyone wants to like just check it out, it's called where is it here? Waves-2.vercel.app. Waves-2. This is his DSO. This is the DSO one. There we go. Yeah, this is his live streaming. So this is built on Livepeer, using the DSO graph, and yeah, not sure kind of how it works yet. Just messing around with it, but if we can support him and motivate him to build on top of Lens, I'd be pretty stoked on that. Anyway, yeah, just wanted to bring that up. Cool. Any other topics we want to cover? Right on. Well, we'll go ahead and end it there. I do appreciate you all being here for today's water cooler chat, helping to build the world's open video infrastructure. And we will see you all next week. Cheers.
Bye, everyone.
See you guys.